we're gonna go through some tips that I found through my search while buying this S4. Essentially, I found these tips through research on forums, through search, and then watching YouTube videos. So I'm going to bring it all together, and this helped me find a really good S4 for a great price, $23,500, and essentially saved me thousands of dollars. Just in case you need a reminder why you want one of these, this is why you want one. Going 0 to 60 in very fast time. You want to look for swirls in your paint. Black is a very tough color. I know I got swirls in here. I did put some wax on it to kind of cover it up. But anyway, a paint correction can fix that. You want to also make sure that the exterior is in good condition. You should expect some scratches. You definitely should expect your wheels to have, some wear and tear. Look at that right there. So it happens. You got to have your expectations correctly. I'll say this. If you're spending over $26,000 on one of these, then you should expect a better condition car. But if you're getting it for less than that, then definitely expect some of these things. Definitely look for body damage. Check your Carfax. Make sure that it was never in an accident. Look under the hood. Your panels have even paint across everywhere, or else it was probably repainted. This rail over here is straight as an arrow, because that will definitely show you if it was in an accident. Look over here. It's your basic areas, right? Just basically look everywhere to make sure that you have straightness. And here's another simple tip, but don't forget this. Look for the VIN number over here. Make sure it matches. Okay, so a recommendation is to bring a clay bar and some wet wax and actually undo some of the paint, because the dealership or whoever you're buying it from can buff it. They can do 3 coats of wax like I do and cover up a lot. So you want to really get a sense of how good the paint is and the clear coat. This is something I recommend. Right, so you basically, Mother Showtime or anything of this nature, right? Take your clay and essentially give it a quick spray and clay. Bring a microfiber cloth with you, of course, and do this. I could really get a sense of how that panel feels and whether or not there's some scratches. That there's definitely a little bit of swirl going on in this paint, which again, I might do a paint correction for, but that's how you're gonna notice those kind of things. And the other thing is, what you can do is make sure to see the car in sunlight. Really bright sunlight. That is definitely going to be a make or break to tell you how good your paint is. Figure out the mileage range that you want your S4 to be in, and then drive at least 3 or 4 S4s, because you want to know what an S4 should feel like before you actually pull the trigger on one. The last thing you want is that it's either not accelerating as hard as it should, or maybe something's wrong with the car and you just didn't know how to spot that. So I think that's a very critical piece of your experience when trying to buy a new, your new used S4. I think you should want a car that is either you're the second owner or the third. I would recommend trying to get one, the price point that I saw that was very good to go 25 or less is really around 65,000 miles or more. So, but I would keep it under 100,000. Now keep in mind, 75,000 is a major maintenance interval part where the DSG has to get serviced. And a tip that might save you money is that if the owner did Audi Care, it's already paid for. It's paid for on the car, not the actual person. So this car, for example, has a 65,000 Audi Care free service maintenancing that I'm taking advantage of there. For those playing at home, I did experience something else that I needed to add to this video. Essentially, what I want to tell you is that make sure your battery on your car is fairly new, because what I learned through my own experience recently is that essentially the batteries might require you to reset your electronics and put some codes in, The dealer quoted me 2 hours of work. I did pay it. I know you might think I'm a sucker, but I just was really tight on time, and at that point just said, oh, whatever, because I did the Audi Care and I didn't have to pay for that. But anyway, my point is that you can save yourself some real money if you have a fresh battery in the car, or something that's going to last you at least a year or two, because it's very much recommended that you use Audi batteries, and that you have the codes put into your car so this way your electronics work correctly. I read that basically what happens is that the car has some way of telling when the battery's older, and it uses, I believe, the alternator. I might be wrong on this, but it does something to prolong the life of the battery. So you need to tell the car you have a new battery in there, or a fresh battery in there, so this way that it doesn't do that. So some people on the forums will say, oh no, you don't need to reprogram it. You do. Another tip that I want to point out is brakes. You should also make sure you got good brake pads, because what I learned through experience on this car is that within about 4,000 miles, I wore down the brake pads at least 1 millimeter, if not more. And it's not uncommon. I drove it really hard to really have a lot of fun with it early days. So I'm not that surprised, but essentially what I'm telling you is that your brake pads on these cars are not expected to last as long as most cars. So essentially brake pads are going to last on this car as little as 30,000 miles on an OEM pair of brakes, if you really drive it that hard. Or you're just driving a lot of stop and go. So very important to keep that in mind is that, you know, you want to get a set of brake pads that are probably 8 millimeters or more. I wouldn't get 6, because 6 basically is going to last me probably about 12,000 miles. I almost bought one with wheels that could have been made from a knockoff company that does the Black Ops 19-inch wheels. Here's a picture of it. I could have bought that one. Those wheels were either made in Germany or they were made in Taiwan, because there was actually on the internet multiple reports of a company in Taiwan stamping that it was made in Germany inside the wheel. I also recommend you buy a car that was serviced by a dealer, because then on the Carfax, it's going to have all the servicing information, which is very critical in making your decision. So what I recommend is simply get the Audi servicing done when you finalize on a car. They will do an extremely thorough inspection. I'll actually put a link to mine that was done for this car. Some reasons to go with the 2014 or newer is that there's water pump failures on earlier versions, especially the B8. The other thing to keep in mind is thermostat issues. And also the DSG is the best version of it in the 2014 and newer. In summary, make sure you have a great running one. Do your check, do a full diagnostic check, pay a dealership to do it. Just make sure that your engine, your transmission is in good shape, and that your servicing has been done, that your exterior and interior are in good condition, that you're buying. Just spend maybe an hour or two talking, looking on forums. And actually one of the most important things that helped save me from buying a bad car was, if you have a question or you're not sure of something, I recommend the Audi B8.5 group on Facebook. Those guys are great. They're going to answer any question you have. And you can't think of everything, you can't read everything, and you're going to get into a really small detail that you might not have even thought of until you're there. So just be ready to use the forums or use the Facebook group for your specific questions. That's what I recommend.